Do you like to binge watch TV? Did you know you could binge listen to podcasts? Head over to electronicmediacollective.com, where they have podcasts for days. You like podcasts about wrestling? They have that. Do you like podcasts about TV and film? They have that. Do you like podcasts about horror? EMC has that too. Do you like comedy? Do you like books? Guess what? They've got you covered. Head over to electronicmediacollective.com. Pick your favorite podcast today.
This is a warning to all living mortals. Moose will release 13 of the most terrifying interviews of horror unto the world.
Welcome back, Horror Hounds, to another installment of the 13 Horrifying Days of Christmas. I'm your host and gift giver, Moose, and joining me today is a musician, a horror fan. I want to say kooky, but kooky in a good way, gentlemen, and we'll get into that. But please welcome from Isaac Rothers and the Phantoms. Let me read you that. Please welcome from Isaac Rother and the Phantom himself, Mr. Isaac Rother.
It's the Phantom, baby. I'm happy to be here.
And see, kooky in a good way. Oh man, no, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here too. I'll
So,
only give the Phantom voice at certain moments for this interview, since it's a longer one.
It's save your voice, brother. So, how's life? How's everything going on? You know, what's new?
Oh, life is great. We're working on a new album, and then we're going to be releasing it under a different name than Isaac Rother and the Phantoms. I haven't announced the new name yet, but it's coming right with the new year, or right around the new year.
Nice.
It'll be similar, but just a little more compact.
The 13 Ghosts of Isaac Rother.
You'll just have to wait and see.
So, what, just to dive into it, what attracted me sounds weird. What drew me to you in the first place was your look. Your look and sound kind of reminds me of what, like, if Eddie from Rocky Horror Picture Show had a band.
Cool. Thank you. Well, yeah, I've always felt having a unique look is an important part of being a performer. And most of my favorite performers and people I admire, it's like you almost knew it was going to be good before you even heard it because they look so cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you put the time into the presentation, it's you have to think that, okay, they definitely put some time into their talent as well. It's not just, they're going to go out and look pretty,
Yeah, well, you'd hope.
Yeah. So, well, let's go back to when you got your what piqued your interest. You found music and horror right around the same time. Well, not found music, but got hooked on like rock and roll and horror right in like a really good, I want to say, era of both. Because if I read it correctly, what kicked this all this off for you was the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo and Wipeout.
Yeah, wow, nice research. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I was so young getting into that stuff, but so the chronology is not 100% crisp, but I definitely loved Scooby-Doo and the spin-off 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which of course has the character Vincent Van Ghoul, played by Vincent Price. And I just loved songs like Wipeout and Wooly Bully and Great Balls of Fire, which, as I became a musician, I sort of realized, well, those are all kind of blues-based songs, but you don't think about that stuff if you're just hearing it. But I love that like high energy, exciting, kind of simple type of song as a kid. And kids are, not pretentious. It's not like, oh, I'm listening to this because it's what, is cool right now. I mean, I guess kids do get into things like that when they're older, but
when kids are first like
5,
discovering
6,
music,
7, there's no pretension.
Yeah, no, it's when kids are first discovering music. I'd say it's, oh, this is cool. This is energetic. Like, my daughter really latched on to the Trashmen when she was about that age.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, I mean, what's not to love about the Trashmen?
Right. So same thing, high energy, just
it's fun too. It's like you don't have to one thing that I almost feel like something sucks if someone has to explain to you why it's good. If someone's like, oh, this is good because it's hard to do. It's like, who cares? It should be like self-explanatory that it's good. And if it's also hard to do, all the better. But I just feel like I hear sometimes things are like justified by like, oh, like you have to like, or this is so good because of like this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, if you have to explain it, it's like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's probably not funny. If you have to explain why it's good,
well, like,
why not good?
I'm a fan of the Beach Boys. On the surface, it sounds really easy, but
sure,
it's then you like kind of peel back the layers, and it's musically, it's not easy. Which is cool, but the music's still good. So
it's like all the better if it's also took some serious like deep talent and whatever too, but like it doesn't necessarily. Well, I guess, but I don't know. I was gonna say like Wipeout's not hard to play, and then I'm like, well, it's got the drum part isn't so simple and whatever, but it doesn't have like complicated harmony or anything, but it's just good. It's like it doesn't need it. But if something does have more complicated harmony and is also good, can't argue with it.
No, I 100% agree. And years later, you turned Wipeout, the surfer music, into and you mentioned Great Balls of Fire. You managed to take the West Coast and the South in rockabilly, and you made Ghoul Rock. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I did an interview on Barstool Yak, and I said I invented ghoulish rock and roll, and then people got mad at me for saying that. But what I meant is I invented that term to describe my music because I don't think that there was a term in existence that really described what I was doing, which, like you said, it's got West Coast surf influence, it's got Southern influences from blues and rockabilly and even country music, and it's got probably a lot of other influence in there too, and then horror also. So it's like, okay, I could give this whole like dissertation about these like all these different influences coming together, or I could just say ghoulish rock and roll. You know what I mean? So I invented it. The haters can cry me a river.
Yeah, I mean, it's what was the sound like? Some of the songs lean a little bit more rockabilly, so yes, rockabilly was there. But when you put the package together, it's something new, it's something different.
Right, and people like Screaming Jay Hawkins have combined rock and horror and many others.
Yeah.
But I think, the way I do it's my way. Like the band The Mummies calls their music budget rock, and I call my music ghoulish rock and roll.
Yeah, and that leads to your videos. Which do you do your own music video editing, or who does that for you?
It depends on the video. I did the Wolfman one myself. I shot it on my phone and I edited it myself, and I did that one totally in house. Most of the other ones have been done by friends who had a lot of skills and talent and had the time to do an extra project.
Because I love all of them, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And the reason I asked was because they're very reminiscent of the like 60s, 70s horror graphics. God, I wish I could remember which one it was, but there was one where there's, I think it's like these bats kind of like...
oh, yeah, I think that's the Haunted Castle video. It's like an animation.
Castle. Yeah. So, Haunted Castle specifically, has a very retro horror vibe. It has that like classic, almost Hammer horror animation style, and it was just cool. Gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. My friend Ryan made that. He was he was playing bass on that song too, so you see him in the video. Yeah, he's a talented guy. He had just finished film school and kind of hadn't started his career yet, so it was a really good time and for him to do that video, and then he got a job with a video game company. But yeah, the video is super cool. It was definitely influenced by Hammer horror and Italian horror too. I know, especially with the lighting, was kind of a lot of nods to that type of stuff. And then the animations where we just took from, I want to say it's The Terror. It's like a Roger Corman horror movie from the early '60s, but it's public domain.
That tracks, because like it looked familiar, but it was like, no, this works. This is awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in public domain from the '60s.
Oh yeah,
even Night of the Living Dead, one of the best movies ever, is public domain. And it's so funny, the stories about how the stuff ends up in public domain. It's like with Night of the Living Dead, it was something like they changed the name of the movie right before it went to the distributor, and they forgot to put like a title that says copyright or whatever, and then that goof made this like classic movie public domain.
Yeah, it's funny how something so simple can drop this like classic into the public domain.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, you'd think there'd be a better system than like, oops, we forgot to like put it in the movie, so now it's public domain.
Yeah,
but oh well, works out for everyone else.
Right. So that's why I think it's like the most played horror movie in horror.
Yeah, I believe it.
Like,
because it's good too. It's like Terror. Some of these movies, like I think it's The Terror is the one we took that from. It's like, it's kind of worth watching if you're into this stuff, because if I'm remembering right, it has like a young Jack Nicholson and Boris Karloff. But as like a movie itself, it's kind of like unremarkable. But Night of the Living Dead is one of the best there ever was, and that's public domain. So I think that's why it's the most shown, because it's exciting. It's actually, even by like modern standards, it's pretty action packed and exciting.
I'm saying it still holds up.
Yeah, 100%.
So Romero definitely knew what the hell he was doing.
Truly. I mean, I can't even think of another movie that came out before that it's just like 2 minutes into it that's horror right off the bat, and it's pretty extreme.
No, I mean, you look at a lot of the movies from that era or prior, and I mean, like, I love the Universal monsters and all that, but they don't necessarily hold up as well as Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
they're fun to watch.
True. The immediate action with Night of the Living Dead is like almost unprecedented, and it doesn't really let up. It's like has an intensity to it that, yeah, it's like the Universal and the Hammer ones especially. It's like creating like a vibe, and they always take a long time kind of introducing characters that are sometimes interesting, sometimes they're just like generic characters that are like the victim.
Oh, yeah, so they're definitely more of a slow burn, but the payoff's worth it.
Yeah.
Whereas,
absolutely.
like, Night of the Living Dead, it was they lit that firecracker from the beginning, and you're just chasing it.
Yeah, truly. I mean, it's one of the best.
I was pleasantly surprised, because I was, as I was listening to your music, I was like, this, it reminded me a lot of surfer rock legend Dick Dale. And
yes,
then I was
one of my
like,
favorites.
And then I saw that you had opened for Dick Dale.
Yeah, definitely one of my career highlights, because I love Dick Dale. Is one of my biggest influences on the guitar, and just such an interesting guy too. And we actually got to play with him twice, and I met him a couple times, and he has the reputation of being a bit of a dick himself, but he was always nice to me. Just such a like legendary guy, and there's so much like lore around Dick Dale, like he owned all these nightclubs, and he had like a private zoo. He was almost like a 60s surf Joe Exotic in a way. And then he had like a Las Vegas show, or maybe it was even a Reno show at some point. And he was like an early Kempo karate expert, and then of course he was a surfer early on, and then one of the inventors of reverb, and then he played guitar upside down, and then you add to that he could play like 10 different instruments. So just really an incredible guy. And then his like the height of his career was like 4 years. It's like by like 1965, it was like that craze was over.
In that time, he cemented himself as a legend.
Yeah, truly. I think it was probably tough, because he I think it wasn't really until the 80s that like anyone kind of realized that his music was kind of worthwhile beyond just like some flash in the pan.
It was funny, going back to like when I first came across you, I was like, all right, it's Dick Dale meets Meatloaf. This is awesome.
Yeah, man, I just can't say enough about Dick Dale. It's so cool. I probably already said this, but he played guitar upside down, which is really interesting. And then he mostly just played stuff on the low string and then the high string and switched back and forth. He used the other four strings a little bit, but it was like 90% of his playing was just on one of the two strings.
Definitely make life easier.
Yeah, less to worry about. But it's just cool. I don't know anyone else who really played like that. And the other thing too is like I guess he used to play with a really big band probably back in the day when there was kind of more money for that. But every time I'd seen him, he was always with a trio, and he just got such a great sound that's really hard to replicate, because I've seen other people playing miserably doing Dick Dale songs, and it just isn't. It doesn't hit the way it did when he did it.
You got to get everything lined up just perfect.
Truly.
So that takes us to the formation of your group.
Yes.
What led to that road? I mean, we know what got you into music, but what was the push that said, "Yep, I want to be a performer"? Right.
Well, I guess I always thought music was really exciting and interesting and kind of like the coolest thing you could possibly do. And I got really into punk rock when I was a teenager, and the kind of the vibe with punk rock is you don't have to be good, you don't have to know what you're doing. It just matters that you're doing it. So I started singing in punk bands when I was like 14 or 15. So that's how I started performing, and I play guitar a little bit, but I wasn't like a guitar player in a band until I was older, because I wasn't really very good when I was young. But I was cool. I liked to sing in a band, but I hadn't taken the time to get good enough at guitar yet. So I started out with playing in punk bands, and then fast forward a little bit, I was kind of sick of that, because I'd been in that world for like 10 years, and it just kind of like felt like I'd seen every type of punk band a gazillion times. I wasn't super impressed or inspired by it. And then I moved to Olympia, Washington, and it was like everyone and their mom in Olympia had like a hardcore punk band. And I was just kind of like, oh, this again, like I like it. It's cool. But it was just like, I'd seen it so many times, and I'd always really loved like the stuff we've been talking about, Dick Dale, Sam the Sham, like 1950s rock and roll is a big thing for me. So I was like, I wanted to play more like that type of music. So I started a band up there with that being the name. And that's why I went with this name, Isaac Rother and the Phantoms, because it felt like kind of in line with Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs and Question Mark and the Mysterians and James Brown and the Famous Flames and all those old bands that had these kind of long such and such and the such and such names. So that was kind of the inspiration for that. But now, as I've been doing this for a long time, I'm kind of like, this long name is too clunky, it's too long, and creates too many problems. But that's kind of how the band started and sort of the early influences. And I wanted to do it anyway. It wasn't just like a reaction against everyone playing punk, but it was just like I felt like I didn't know anyone playing the type of music that I wanted to play.
Well, and that's what makes music fun, is you can go out, and if there isn't something that you like out there, you can go out and create it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, because I feel like there wasn't really, like I said, no one I knew was really playing this kind of music. And then on top of that, when somebody was playing something that was sort of like influenced by the stuff I was into, it was usually this really like cookie cutter kind of dull version that really like lacked the edge of someone like Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard, that had just this like frantic teenage, like dangerous energy. And it was like, I'd see somebody, if I, did see someone playing rock and roll, it almost sounded like rock and roll filtered through like a Disney movie or something. It was like the playing was like super perfect and the singing was super perfect, but not like gruff at all. And it just it didn't have the like excitement or edge that I like about the original music.
You like more of the chaotic rock.
Yeah, when it's like exciting, it's like your attention. It's cool. It's powerful. It's badass.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab you from the beginning, and you're going to watch me the entire time, and you are not going to take your eyes off of me. Rock.
Yeah, like I don't like casual music. Like I like a performance and people that are talented, but also like part of I do love that like I mentioned like how Wooly Bully and Wipeout and all these songs that I really liked were all kind of blues songs structurally. So I that's kind of what I like too. Is I like bluesy stuff that's like a little rooted in like American musical tradition, but not just like straight that, but it's like that's kind of part of it.
No, absolutely. So, of the tours you've been on, which would you say has been your favorite tour?
Man, I've done so many cool ones. I've had so many good opportunities, and a lot of the opportunities I made myself. But this summer I got to do play the Midwest, some of the East Coast, and some of the South, and that was really cool. I just did it totally solo with what I call my invisible band. But that was really cool to visit all these places. I did like 16 shows in 18 days. So I really liked that one. I did 4 shows in Japan in October. That was amazing. Japan is just such a cool place. It's so different than America in so many ways, but really cool, and it's a really cool place to go to as an American because it's like stuff that you kind of are familiar with, but then it's just like so different. And then probably piggybacking off that, I also did a 3-week tour in America with Guitar Wolf, and that was all the way back in 2016, but that was like West Coast extended because we went up into Canada a little bit, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, and then came back down and played like Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, plus the West Coast. So it's kind of like extended West Coast, but that was really cool with Guitar Wolf, who are like a Japanese punk band. And it was really interesting getting to know them, and also just getting to see these different shows where it'd be like, we do like a sold out show in Seattle and then play to like 15 people in Montana. So that was just, and I'm not like, that was cool to me just to see like, well, our own show and also Guitar Wolf show, just like we're still trying to bring in 100% in both situations. But it's also just interesting to go from like these extremes, like one night after, a few days apart. That's
live music.
Yeah.
My day job is I work security at a music venue here in Omaha.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I see the ebbs and flows of crowd sizes.
Sure, yeah. And it's, there's so many factors that go into, obviously, like a bigger artist draws more people, but even, like the day of the week and time of the year and stuff definitely is a huge factor too. Who else is, who's on the bill can also make a big difference. That's cool, man. I haven't been to Omaha yet, but I hope to.
Well, let's talk a little after this. I have a couple ideas.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I've seen artists who one appearance, they'll like pack the place, and then the next appearance, half the crowd. And just because, it was different day of the week.
Yeah, I know. I wish it could be Friday and Saturday every day. That's why it was cool, like playing at a place like, I just kind of had this vision of being based out of a city like Nashville. Not that I'm going to move, but I'm just like fantasizing because you're in such a central location that you like could just, you could go north a few hours and hit some Midwest cities. You could go south and hit some other southern cities. You could go east and hit some East Coast. It's just like you could just go out every weekend and just hit a bunch of different big cities and then go back to work Monday through Friday and then hit the cities on the weekend. And you can't really do that out where I live in California because it's like the drives are just far. It's like 12 hours to Portland and then like 6 hours to Los Angeles, and those are probably the 2 biggest adjacent cities.
Yeah, no, that's when you have to actually map out a tour. Even if it's like a 6-day tour, you have to map something out to make it worth your time.
Absolutely. But that was what was really eye-opening is I kind of realized that like west of the Mississippi River, like the cities are pretty close to each other, like 3 hours apart, 4 hours apart. Whereas or did I say east? I meant east of the Mississippi. It's like the cities are closer, and like west of the Mississippi, it's all these like long, epic drives.
You get to see a lot of country out there. Here you get city, country, city. It's
Yeah, and it's like doing a 9-hour drive for a show. It's tough.
You said you're changing the name of the project, which I'm looking forward to the reveal. What kind of musical inspiration is going into the new album?
Cool. Well, it's kind of I don't want to say more of the same, but same kind of stuff I've been doing, just under a new name. We're doing some, I guess, we're doing a John Carpenter song, the Halloween theme. So that's going to be on the album. But a lot of 3-chord rock and roll, which I love, and I kind of started writing songs like that. Not that I wasn't before, but really just kind of doubling down on like that's what I want to play, is these like 3-chord hard rockin' 1950s style songs. And so it's got a lot of that, and it's not like an exact copy. It's like you wouldn't hear anything like that in the 50s, but it's like that's kind of some of the influence, big time. So similar stuff as before, but even more so maybe.
Nice.
I also wrote a song about the brain that wouldn't die, which is like one of my favorite old horror movies. So there's going to be that on there too, some horror stuff, of course.
And so that should be out around the new year?
I hope so. Definitely between, probably not quite at the new year because we're still working on the album, but I would hope March at the absolute latest, hopefully earlier.
Nice. So if you could perform with anybody, who would you pick?
Like to open for?
Yeah.
Man, well, I've been blessed to play with Dick Dale, and I also got to open for Wanda Jackson. So those are two people I'm really influenced by that I have been able to share the stage with. I'm gonna say Sam the Sham, because he's still alive and he hasn't played in decades, and he's one of my favorite musicians. Like Wooly Bully is kind of like tip of the iceberg, but he's got so many great songs, and I just love his approach to music because he kind of does like the same keyboard part, same part on his Farfisa organ in like most of the songs, but it's good every time. And that's why he went by the Sham, because he only knew how to do one thing. But it was like it's good, and I love that. It's like he's a master of that beat, and he got a lot of great songs out of it.
Hey, if you can do one thing and do it well, that's a career.
I'd love to play music, and I do, obviously, but I'd love to be able to do it full time.
Well, that's the flip side of that coin. Is it's such a hard industry to break into, to where you can be like full-time career musician.
Yeah, it's tough. It's I haven't figured it out yet, but people do it, and there's artists I can point to that are sort of similar to me that are, I'm pretty sure, not working day jobs. So it's doable, and it's so much of it is like, we all have this myth that it's like hard work, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's a factor, but it's like so much. There's also like luck and connections, and nepotism are huge factors too. But like anything, you just got to keep doing it as well as you can and hope for the best and try to be smart and strategic and think about different ways to promote yourself.
I know guys that have been doing this for years, been touring bands like Bib and Cursive, work as bartenders as their day job.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, and like even like bands that are big and even like legendary musicians. I think like, well, in both, like, I was gonna say in punk rock, like I remember hearing that like the guitar player of Bad Brains like works at a grocery store, and I was like, oh man, really? Like the guitar player, like this legendary guitar player, it's like working at a grocery store? That's too bad. Not that there's anything wrong with working at a grocery store, but I'm like, this guy is like a legend, but it's like that too with most of the 50s rock guys. Like maybe the couple of the biggest ones had like careers out of it, but most of them, it was like they maybe supported themselves with music for a few years, and then it was kind of, back to the farm or whatever.
And I said then it was, well, got to find a day job.
Yeah.
This can be a weekend dream.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the interesting things about the 50s is it's like there was all this music coming out, and then it kind of went out of fashion. Nobody cared about it. But then in the in the 80s, especially in England, but in America too, like there became a bigger audience. So a lot of these guys, like, you know, had a second chapter to their music career.
Well, I think ultimately what happened was in the 80s, a lot of it started becoming like soundtracks for some of the movies. And,
Sure.
you know, so it gained a younger audience, and the audience is like, who's this?
Yeah, I mean, Dick Dale's maybe the ultimate example of that with like Pulp Fiction. I feel like some people just think of Miserlou as the Pulp Fiction song, which is kind of weird, but I guess, you know, it was like one of the biggest movies of all time. So I guess I can't get mad at people, but it definitely was a huge boost to Dick Dale's career, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at Top Gun. It basically reinvented Great Balls of Fire.
Right.
You know, threw that in front of an entirely different audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, the same things happened in like the last 15 years with Elvis songs, with like anything that The Rock's been in.
Sure. And then, you know, even like the Cramps were in like Wednesday, and then also one of the Halloween movies. So it's like, you know, a little too late for them to get any credit, but it's just funny when that happens. It's like things get acknowledged like way too late, but better late than never.
But now it's becoming one of the most covered songs at shows.
Goo Goo Muck?
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny, and because it's a cover of a cover of a cover. You heard the original?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a funny thing too, is when it's like a cover gets popular and then people cover the cover.
Well, and there are times where, yeah, the cover is just more popular than the original.
Yeah, sometimes it's better. I think the original Goo Goo Muck's pretty cool, but there's definitely examples of that where the cover is better than the original.
Say Johnny Cash is Hurt blew 9 Inch Nails out of the water.
Yeah, there you go.
I think the newer version of Sound of Silence is more menacing.
I haven't even heard that. Who does that?
Disturbed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's a much darker vibe. And, like, I mean, the song itself has always kind of had that, like, dark undertone to it.
Sure.
But you get Disturbed's vocals and musicality to it, and it sounds eerie and just super depressing, and like it was almost like it was written for him.
Written for Disturbed.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I only know the like boo-wah song.
Yeah. Yeah. No, their take on Sound of Silence is amazing.
Huh. All right, I'll have to check that out.
So before we put this to bed, where can listeners keep up to date with you on social medias for the new album and tours and such?
My Instagram is IamThePhantom_666. That seems to be where I get the most traction on social media, but I'm also on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. I also have a website, IsaacRother.com, ISAACROTHER.com. Any of those places are good. Instagram is probably the most frequently. Instagram and Facebook are probably updated the most.
Listeners, I'll put those links in the episode description. Go check them out. You can check me and other great podcasters out over at electronicmediacollective.com. Be sure to follow me on Facebook at Moose's Monster Mash or on YouTube at Moose Media Inc. Isaac, this is fun.
Moose, thank you for having me, man. This is cool.
Look forward to the new album.
Thank you.
I'm going to have you come back on sometime. We'll talk movies.
Anytime.
Make sure you guys go over and, if you haven't checked him out, check him out. He's got a lot of stuff on YouTube. The videos are cool as hell. They got a great sound. And come back tomorrow for another installment of the 13 Horrifying Days of Christmas. And until next time, Horror Hounds, mash on.
This has been Moose's Monster Mash. Come back for more chills and thrills if you dare.